What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Mind Something. I'm Jake, and today I want to talk to you guys about should you sell your GPUs and buy ASICs? Also wanted to talk to you guys about following advice of the so-called experts. Do they get it right? Do they get it wrong? We're going to take a look at it. And then a couple of other things. We're going to talk about the Intel ARC A380 and some new numbers coming out of some benchmarks. And then lastly, I'd like to take a look at this new ETH proof of work fork that is going to happen come the merge. But before we get into that, let's take a look at what to mine. The farm is coming in at 47.23 a day in revenue, 37.13 in profit after power. Ethereum's pulled back a little bit, currently sitting at 1941. And Ergo is no longer the most profitable algorithm to mine on my farm. It's coming in at about 4th or 5th place here. When it comes to GPU mining versus ASIC mining, you guys are already aware of the pros and cons, but if you're like me, you've probably contemplated a time or two recently on what's the best strategy going forward. I think we all assume at this point that GPU mining is not going to be profitable immediately following the merge and will continue to struggle along for a while until we perhaps get some price discovery on some of these other coins, if that ever happens. We're just going to have to wait and see. Now, when it comes to selling your GPUs, obviously the time to do that was many, many months ago, but it is still a possibility and something to consider. But let's take a look at some of these ASIC miners. So the most profitable ASIC miners right now are on ETH, but that's not going to be the case pretty soon. And coming in second, we have a Kadena miner, the Gold Shell KD Max. It's coming in at 28.46 a day in profit after power. But you got to scroll a pretty good ways down here before you see SHA-256 or a Bitcoin miner, which in this case is the Antminer S9 XP at 140 terahash. Of course, there are a lot of other algorithms to mine with an ASIC, but if you take a look at the most profitable one with KDA, you are looking at a sticker price of about 12,500 and an ROI of 440 days. I'm curious, how does that compare to current profitability of, let's take for example a 3080. So going back to what to mine, I'm just going to remove these here and we'll focus specifically on one 3080. That's coming in at $2.70 a day in revenue, $2.13 after power. So we'll just say $2.13. Now if you've got, let's say you bought a 3080 at $750 including tax. You divide that by, what do we say, $2.13. ROI is coming in at 352 days, which is not too far away from this Gold Shell KD Max. Now, of course, the big glaring issue with this particular example is Ethereum mining is going away. So what is profitability going to look like for a 3080 post-merge? So if we look at the second most profitable thing, we're coming in at $1.67 on Ethereum Classic. Now again, that is also subject to change after the merge and all of this hash rate moves over. But just taking a look at it right now, if you paid $750 for that 3080, you divide that by $1.67, that's putting your ROI out to 449 days, which is further away than the KDA miner. So obviously nothing is going to be as profitable as it currently is for a while, but if we assume that we have some price discovery and one of these coins pops off, then best case scenario, maybe we are looking at $1.67 a day in revenue. But having said that, what are the pros and cons of switching your GPUs out for ASICs? Well, the big thing is obviously going to be using a lot more power. The second thing is going to be noise, and the last thing is going to be heat. Now, of course, GPUs do put off a lot of heat. They also use a lot of power, and yeah, comparatively they are not as loud. But the big question is whether or not the return on investment is going to be faster with an ASIC versus the GPU. Now, I personally think that it's going to take a little bit longer than most people would anticipate for GPU profitability to be anywhere close to what it is right now. I'm going to continue to hang on to my GPUs and just see where we go over the next few months. But if you're considering purchasing some ASICs, if you take a look at what is most profitable, it seems like Kadena is going to be next in line after Ethereum. Like I said, you got to scroll way down this list to see Bitcoin miners in here. Let's take a look at this S19 Pro, if I can find it. Here we go. So you're looking at $15.36 a day in revenue. We're looking at $8.67 a day in power and $6.69 in profit. And that particular miner is currently selling for about $8,400. So ROI is 1,255 days. We don't even need the calculator for that. So yeah, I think KDA is probably the direction to go post-merge if you are considering switching to ASICs. Now granted, BTC is probably the safer bet when it comes to what could potentially happen to some of these coins in the future once we start having some significant regulation. And I personally lean towards being more speculative. If I were going to trade any of my GPUs for an ASIC, I would probably be leaning towards getting a KDA miner and not a Bitcoin miner. But it's good to diversify, right? Now, having said that, I do also have some Bitcoin miners. I have an S19, not a Pro, and I also have a couple of S9s, which I don't even think are profitable at the moment. They're not currently running. And if you take a look at Kadena's price historically, you can see that we got all the way up to about $24 at the height of the bull run. We are currently sitting at about $2. So yeah, we're talking about a 12x if we get back to all-time highs. And going back to this KDA miner here, if it is currently making $28 a day, well, 28 times 12 would put you at $336 a day in profit. Whew, man, that sounds fantastic. So, something to consider. But do your own research, figure out what is best for you in your particular situation, weigh out all those pros and cons, but just something I wanted to bring to y'all's attention. And next, when it comes to taking advice from somebody on YouTube or taking advice from a billionaire like Elon Musk, or let's take for example some other people that have been wrong here in the past, Kathy Woods, Celsius. These people are supposed to be the experts, and do they know any better than you? I could definitely make a good argument that they do not. If you take a look at what Elon Musk did, or we'll just say Tesla, they purchased Bitcoin back in Q4 of 2020 at an average price, I believe it was somewhere around 32,000. Yeah, average price of $32,610. Then they sold off 10% of their holdings when it got to about 60,000 and made a nice little profit there. But if you take a look at what they did very recently in order to make their numbers look good before uh, their earnings call, uh, they sold 75% of what they had at 23,000 per Bitcoin. That is about a 30% loss, which is absolutely significant. And if you're looking at the experts to see what's the right moves to make, and you were following somebody like Elon Musk and Tesla, that would have been a significant blunder. If you take a look at Cathie Woods, they're big on Bitcoin, they're big on Ethereum. They were also real big on Coinbase, and they recently sold their position in Coinbase at about a 90% loss. And then almost immediately, they missed out on about a 75% gain. We're talking about days away from making the right call. So yeah, they got the crew, they got the research, and they still aren't getting it right. My point is, this market can fool you, and it can fool the best of us. So the best course of action is to get a game plan together and stick to that game plan. Don't change up your strategy. Obviously you do have to pivot with new information. You don't want to be too set in your ways, but it's best to stick to your strategy if it makes sense for you long term. So moving on, I wanted to talk to you guys about the Intel ARC A380. I saw this article earlier today, and it really is a head scratcher here. So Intel ARC A380 overclocks to 3.1 gigahertz, 55% faster than stock. That's pretty significant. I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit of this article to you guys. So a YouTuber, Scatter Bencher, has shown off some GPU Z screens teasing impressive graphics card overclocking work in progress. The overclocking expert, known by the handle Massman on HWBot, has coaxed the lethargic Intel ARC A380 graphics card into a sprightly 3.1 GHz performer. That clock speed represents a 55% uplift compared to stock and far exceeds factory overclock samples. The 3.1 GHz Intel ARC A380 tail raises quite a few questions. First, why overclock the ARC A380 to extremes? Probably just because it is there. To coin a mountaineering phrase, the question of how is more involved, and we will have to take a few educated guesses, as Scatterbencher hasn't divulged his technique for this feature. Scatterbencher shared his result on Twitter, bemoaned his techniques, taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Tuning GPUs is full of compromises and balances. Every GPU model and every individual GPU sample will have its own optimal setting, which requires steps forward and backward to pinpoint. Now there's some screenshots here. I want to show you guys something very interesting here. So yeah, we're sitting at 3.1 megahertz on the clock, and the memory clock coming in at 1900. But what I found really interesting was the total GPU power coming in at 17.283 watts. Is this going to be a good card for mining? It seemed really good initially when we started getting reports, and then little by little it just started looking worse and worse. But I found these screenshots very interesting. Now, I don't know how all this correlates to mining. Obviously, each algorithm is going to perform differently. But it says here the screenshots show 3.1 gigahertz overclock in the center section, reported by the Sensors tab as well as the HW Info section. However, the same sections also provide the most significant clues to the Scatterbencher's methods. The reported board power draw of 17.4 is nonsensical. This leads us to believe that the overclocker has bolt modded the ARC A380 PCB and Sysmon tools thus misreport the stat. With the mod in effect, overclockers aren't restricted by manufacturers' set power limits. The feat ties in nicely with our report from mid-July, where an overclocking enthusiast showed an impressive performance gains from giving the A380 an extra 43 to 57% of power. We concluded at the time that ARC A380 power limits were holding back its performance. It certainly looks like this little GPU loves eating watts and can gain some worthwhile performance when it gets extra juice, but Intel's designers want it at 75 watts stock for market segmentation and similar practical reasons. You know, it's really hard to say what this means. Now, if this means something to you and you are more inclined to speculate on what this could possibly mean for mining on some of these algorithms, then please leave a comment below. Would love to hear from you. But one thing's for certain, the team that is developing drivers for these ARC GPUs came from AMD, and we know that drivers have historically been issues for that team. So I think there's still quite a bit of room left for improvement here, and it'll be very interesting to see how this card performs on mining going forward. I've been checking around Twitter, Discord, the forums. Haven't seen anybody working on development for drivers for this card for mining, but I would imagine it is around the corner. So if you know anything about that, please leave a comment down below. And then the last thing I want to talk to you guys is about this ETH proof of work fork that's coming. So if you have not been to the ethereumpow.org website, I recommend checking it out. Looks like we have a white paper coming soon, but you can also follow this link here for their Twitter, and there's a few interesting things that I wanted to share with you guys in case you haven't already heard. So, taking a look at this tweet here, ETHW Core has just released its initial version. Main features are disable the difficulty bomb, EIP 1559 changed, base fee to a multi-sig wallet co-managed by miners and the community, adjusted the starting mining difficulty, and I think this is very interesting that they have already disabled the difficulty bomb, as well as, you know, changing EIP 1559. I'm very curious who the developers are that are working on this, what the team consists of, how long they've been working on this. Obviously, Justin Sun, there's a lot of things surrounding him that don't paint him in a very positive light, but are you going to be mining this Ethereum proof of work after the fork? Will it gain traction? One thing I definitely don't recommend is trading in your current Ethereum for this ETHW. That could be disastrous. And if you take a look at this article here from Bitcoin.com, proposed Ethereum proof of work fork token loses half of its market value in less than 6 days. So in 32 days, Ethereum is expected to upgrade from a proof of work consensus algorithm to proof of stake system after the network used proof of work for 7 years. While the testnets have implemented the new rules, most people envision a relatively smooth mainnet transition. However, another chain is expected to fork away from Ethereum branch, and since August 8th, the proposed fork called ETHW has gained market value in a few IOU markets. Despite the value gathered, the potential token lost more than half of its USD value in less than 6 days' time. And I'm not going to read this entire article to you guys, but just a little picture here showing the different forks that have come off. You know, one thing that's really caught my attention is the fact that they're getting on some of these exchanges. And the fact that they are talking about airdropping some of this ETHW to some of the people that are backing it. Now, Vitalik Buterin made a comment that this is just a speculative way to make a quick cash grab. I would say obviously they're not doing it for free. They're not doing it to lose money. Of course, they're trying to make money off of it. But again, we go back to Ethereum Classic. It already exists. Why do we need another one? Now, are they going to have a better development team than ETH Classic? Perhaps. Are they going to get in with some large exchanges? Are they going to shake hands with the right people to get this out there? You know, it's possible. Is it likely? No, it's probably not likely, but it is definitely something that you need to follow. If you guys are aware of any way to mine this, I'd be very interested to know about it. I'm sure the rest of the community would too. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoy the content. If you would, please give me a like and subscribe. Hope you have a great day. I'm out.